Why 8 Mile Wall is totally forbidden. What does that even mean, bro? I literally live. I can't. He's not leak. Bro, 8 Mile is not that bad, bro. 8 Mile is not that bad.
Running along Detroit's northern edge, 8 Mile has never really been just a road. For generations, it has carried the weight of something much heavier, the boundary between those inside the city and those outside of it. A line that promised opportunity.
Oh, that's facts. I ain't gonna lie. That's facts. No cap. Right when you get past 8 Mile, that's when Southfield start. Oak Park. Ferndale. All that shit is not the city.
Opportunity on one side, while denying it on the other. At first glance, this appears to be like any other wide American thoroughfare.
Brawl Stars stream win? Nigga, I'm not playing Brawl Stars, bro. Get the... Not playing Brawl Stars. Alright, the rest of the comments I'm responding to gotta deal with the video. Or I'm gonna just have to wait. Or we got to wait till the video over for me to respond to them.
But beneath its lanes are layers of history that no one really wants to speak of. Surveys that carved this land into miles, and then built
and Palmer Woods.
Exclusion. At one point, there was a literal wall of concrete used to segregate American families.
What?
It remained the case for decades, until the area received an unexpected dose of world fame.
I did not know this. Is that Beanie's house in the back? Fuck out of here, kid. I did not know this wall was
a movie about a local rapper. So how did one stretch of asphalt become
What?
the most forbidden line? Stay tuned to find out as we uncover the real story of Detroit's 8 Mile and the wall that made it infamous. I'm your host, Ryan Socash.
This wall is supposed to segregate the city? What the fuck?
The mile was a paved road. The land was little more than forest and marsh. Though, importantly, natives to the region had been using the same pathway as a crossroads of their own, leaving routes that later shaped Detroit's
This is crazy.
street grid. Those early trails demonstrate that 8 Mile didn't appear out of nowhere. It was laid across land that had already been mapped out and lived on for centuries. And when the United States pushed into Michigan, the first step was to take that land through the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. The treaty opened the door for surveyors to march west and mark the very line that would one day become 8 Mile Road. In 1807,
bro, niggas had trails on 8 Mile. Niggas dragging the horses and the satchels. I don't know what else they could be holding, but they was carrying it down 8 Mile on foot. That is crazy. What? 8 Mile been a thing, huh?
Detroit,
I'll take it.
Secession of enormous tracts of land, pushing the native communities away and opening the ground to American surveyors. A few years later, in 1815, they stuck a line due west from Detroit. This became Baseline Road, a zero mark for the new
Baseline
grid. The
Road.
measure was practical, a way to carve farms, plots, and townships into sellable squares. But in the act of drawing that line, they also created a border that would outlive its original purpose. The surveyor's line still sits beneath the pavement of 8 Mile, meaning what began as a mathematical calculation would grow into something much heavier. By the mid-19th century, as Detroit transformed from a fur outpost into a booming town, the base edge to the south.
Oh, wait. Look at this. This gotta be fake, but god damn. Did y'all see how much the city just changed? I'm looking like this look like downtown. What is going on? Look how much it just
into a booming town.
Fuck.
Defined the city's edge. To the south rose a density of factories and new immigrants, whereas to the north,
that's cool,
stretched into orchards and scattered hamlets. The line marked where urban life ended, but also where people believed their futures might begin. Families traveling west from the city often used Baseline Road as their guide, cutting along it to reach farmland in Oakland and Macomb counties. When automobiles finally arrived, the baseline was widened, paved, and folded into Michigan's numbered highway system. By then, it was simply known as 8 Mile Road, and it had already become one of the busiest east-west arteries across Detroit's northern border. But Beneath the
Dang,
new
it's
pavement,
always been
the
called
story
8
of its
Mile.
origins remained the same. A surveyor's line born from dispossession turned into a permanent marker of civil separation. Detroit's transformation.
So
from
that's
frontier
a
town
staple
to
center of
city
Detroit.
happened fast enough to be measured within a single lifetime. Remember, in 1701, French officer Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac founded the settlement as a fur trading post. And indeed, for more than a century, it remained a small outpost on the river. But by the mid-1800s, with Michigan's admission to the Union and the arrival of railroads, Detroit began pulling in new residents. Germans, Poles, Italians, and many others arrived to fill in workshops and breweries that sprouted up along Jefferson and Gartland
I
Avenue.
forgot. Yeah.
Then
Detroit has
Henry
some industries.
Ford. In 1908,
Car
Ford Model
industry.
T rolled off the assembly line. 4 years later, in 1912, his Highland Park plant on Woodward Avenue was churning out cars in a way that the world had never seen. Detroit's population
Dang.
doubled between 1910 and 1920, from under 500,000 to nearly 1 million. Families came from places like Ohio and Pennsylvania, not to mention
Fuck Ohio. No cap. That's our ops, bro. That's our ops, bro. We always gotta diss Ohio, man. Bro, I cannot believe, like, what happened? How did it go from like such a booming, growing city to just the slums, bro? What happened, bro? It's not like it's horrible, but it's getting better, bro. Like, but what happened? What happened?
tens of thousands moved up from the southern states. By the 1920 census, Detroit was the fourth
Still love
largest
my
city in
city.
the U.S. And I need to point out that this explosion in population brought new pressures to the northern edge of town. Land near 8 Mile was still open and relatively cheap, a fact that the city authorities used to their advantage. You see, in
What, bro?
1917, the Detroit Urban League began helping households purchase small lots there when banks and realtors refused them entry into other districts, meaning the 8 Mile/Wyoming neighborhood grew from otherwise undesirable transactions. Homes often started out as tar paper shacks or wood farm cottages.
Ew.
But here's the thing. Ownership gave families stability when rental housing closer to the factories was overcrowded and speculative.
Okay.
The setting may have been humble, but the intent was clear: to build a place of permanence. Developers and lenders, however, did not view it that way. In 1934, the Homeowners Loan Corporation drew its infamous residential security maps, a survey that basically graded neighborhoods from A to D. The 8 Mile/Wyoming area, with its patchwork homes and self-built blocks, was coded red, hazardous. That single designation meant mortgages would not be insured, basically that any outside investment would not come. Meanwhile, the opposite side of 8 Mile, subdivisions such as Greenfield Heights and Oak Grove, were planned with restrictive deeds promising protection for buyers. Realtors openly
Dang.
marketed these enclaves as guaranteed to hold their value precisely because they excluded the communities to the south. Meaning, by
Wow.
the late 1930s, the stage was set for collision. In the summer of 1941, workmen arrived.
So whoever bought one side of the street was set for life. The other side, they screwed you over. Hey, GG's, bro, GG's. Hey, they did you dirt. Cause what did I do? Like,
on Burwood Avenue with lumber, rebar, and cement. Their task was simple: to build a wall 6 feet high and half a
car
mile
from
long.
manufacturing moved
The barrier
overseas
was
where
poured
labor is
between
cheap.
Burwood
Oh,
and
okay.
Mendota Street, cutting through what had once been open backyards. Now, the order itself came from developer James T. McMillan, who wanted federal approval to finance a new subdivision north of Detroit's 8 Mile boundary. Federal Housing Administration officials told him bluntly that the only way to guarantee approval was to erect a barrier separating the new development from the older self-built homes to the south.
What?
McMillan later admitted that the wall was not his choice, but a concession to the federal requirement. His words were telling, quote, "We had to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't get the money." The wall served no purpose for traffic, drainage, or sound. Its only function was symbolic, and everybody knew it. For families who lived south of 8 Mile, the wall was a bitter landmark. Some saw it go up right to the edge of their property lines, a daily reminder that their neighborhood had been written off. Meanwhile, on the north side, brand new brick houses sold quickly to buyers who believed in the concept. As realtors
Wow,
promised
so they
that
just-
the barrier would protect their investments. The timing here was explosive. Detroit factories were surging.
Hey, so they just screwed some people over, no cap. They just wanted to. They wanted to screw them over. I'll trap you in a history lesson. Bro, it's fine, bro. I like history. I ain't gonna lie. I like history. I love hearing stuff like this.
Wartime contracts, and the city was packed. Hence, in 1942, the opening of the Sojourner Truth Housing Project for defense workers sparked protest and violence when Caucasian crowds attempted to keep African American families from moving in. A year later, in June of 1943, Detroit was rocked by 3 days of unrest and left 34 people dead.
We want white tenants in our white community. See, nothing's changed, bro. Nothing's changed at all. It's crazy. It ain't even, I mean, bro, it's crazy.
Troops to restore order. So you might be asking, how does this all fit into the 8 Mile? Well, the Brentwood Wall had become a symbol, a physical element that drew a line and divided the city. By the 1950s, Detroit reached its peak population with nearly 2 million. But the groundwork for its decline had already been laid. Federal highway funds cleared entire neighborhoods for expressways like I-75, and thousands of middle-class families moved outward to the suburbs, such as Oak Park, Ferndale, and later Southfield. These communities were advertised as safe, modern, and insulated.
Didn't I just say those?
City. Crossing 8 Mile.
Didn't I just say those cities a second ago? I'm just saying.
Stepping into another world. Manicured lawns, tidy schools, and shopping strips that glowed with neon. The contrast was sharpened in the 1960s, even as Detroit's cultural voice reached the world. In 1959, Berry Gordy founded Motown Records in a modest house on West Grand Boulevard. Within a decade, that house, known as Hitsville, USA, was producing the soundtracks that redefined American music. The Supremes, The Temptations, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and so on.
All those legends in a little house that that niggas just ride past, bro. Nobody goes to Motown. Nobody goes to Motown Museum, bro. It's literally a little house. Like, what am I going there for, my guy? I've never been there a day in my life. I don't think. Maybe one day I'll go. We'll see.
Radiated from Detroit to every corner.
Stream it.
Confidence, style, and possibility. While newspapers carried grim headlines about housing disputes or racial conflict, Motown carried an image of Detroit as a creative capital, alive with
That's
energy.
facts, though.
But just as Motown sound was climbing the charts, Detroit itself was unraveling. The 1967 rebellion, sparked by a police raid, left entire blocks in ruins. In the following decade, factories that had once provided steady work began shutting down or moving out. And from there,
what the heck
began to fall. By the 1980s,
it was cold when Dodge Man closed and workers crowded the unemployment office. Now it's hot in Hamtramck. Political hot.
Unemployment climbed to its record highs. Some of the last most important factories.
The downfall.
Now, white flight had began accelerating back in the 1970s, leaving Detroit's population in a steady decline. But by the 80s, the city had lost nearly 500,000 residents.
Damn.
Crime rates surged, and 8 Mile's reputation hardened. It was no longer just the surveyor's baseline or the edge of a federal map. It was shorthand for a boundary that you didn't cross lightly. On one side, suburbs still touted good schools and safe investment, and on the other, neighborhoods fought to hold together as disinvestment deepened. The Brentwood Wall stood firm, faded and cracked, a relic of a monument when officials believed that concrete could fix the, quote, problems of proximity. But
wow. There's no way, though, that they built a wall to fucking segregate people. There's no way that was real. No way. Like, that's not even fathomable. That's not even fathomable. Okay, like, work with me here, bro. That's crazy, though. Like,
unemployment, declining tax bases, and racial divide only grew. By the early 1980s, the wall was no longer just a dividing line for property values. It had become a haunting monument, promises broken and opportunities denied. By the early 1980s, Detroit was a different city from the one that had built cars for the world. Factories were closing, jobs were disappearing, and whole blocks of the inner city stood hollow. The population, which had once numbered
so
nearly 2
much
million, had
abandoned
fallen below
buildings.
1.2 million. And what remained was often concentrated along the northern edge, where 8 Mile Road cut a stark line between Detroit and its suburbs. Crossing 8 Mile could feel like passing into another reality. To the north, communities like Ferndale, Oak Park, and Warren, property values held, as promised. Schools were better funded, and storefronts stayed open. To the south, neighborhoods frayed. Businesses shuttered, and along the 8 Mile Strip itself, liquor stores, topless bars, and party shops multiplied in places of grocers and clothing stores. Residents spoke bluntly about what it was like. For example, in the 1990s, one local told a Detroit news crew that, quote, nobody comes here after 8 o'clock, describing prostitution and related crimes that flourished along the corridor. Another recalled picking up used cars on the street, furious that his 3-year-old had seen things that
They just let Detroit just go downhill. They said, fuck you niggas, man. Fuck you niggas.
should ever
We out of there.
Patrol
We
cars were
gone.
scarce and residents
Get him gone.
abandoned. What had been built
How you
as a
lose
border of
500,000 people?
was now described as a no-go zone. Detroit became known nationally for its violent crime rates. That year alone, the
Damn.
homicide rate was more than 10 times that of New York. For many outside observers,
What?
8 Mile Road became shorthand for danger and decline. A place where the city ended and the suburbs began, but where life was brutal. As according to some sources, for those who grew up in the area, 8 Mile was simply home. In interviews decades later, some residents described neighborhoods where families looked out for one another, and here's the interesting thing. As that environment grew harsher, teenagers in modest houses just south of 8 Mile began rapping in basement parties and swapping mixtapes. I think you see where I'm going with this. One of them was Marshall Mathers, better known as Eminem.
On some
Eminem
shit like
spent
that, though.
his childhood moving constantly. At times living near Dresden Street south of 8 Mile, and
I do want to say though, nobody listening to Eminem in Detroit at all. Nobody listens to Eminem in Detroit. Okay, he a legend still. Nobody listened to him.
others staying in working class suburbs like Warren. His family never had
Dumbass bot, man. Dumbass kick bot, man. All right, we back.
stability, and the transient life across Detroit's northern edge became central to his music. He didn't invent 8 Mile's reputation, but when he rapped about it in the 313, the line dividing rich and poor, insiders knew exactly what he meant.
The line
Then,
dividing the
in
rich and poor.
2002,
Everybody
this
in the
local
313, put your
situation
motherfucking hands up and
that
follow
Eminem
me.
released 8 Mile, a semi-autobiographical film set along the road. Though the movie fictionalized much of his life, it captured a certain truth about the essence of Detroit, a truth which resonated far beyond the city, as well as the state of Michigan. A story which, beyond the surface, is actually pretty inspirational. A tale where talent could rise, but only after fighting through the weight of poverty, stigma, and separation. The movie's
Damn.
success and its Oscar-winning song, Lose Yourself, with that famous line about mom's spaghetti, cemented 8 Mile in the cultural
Put
imagination.
your mom's spaghetti.
For longtime Detroiters, the irony was sharp. A road that had once been ignored.
Mom's
or
spaghetti, he's
whispered
nervous,
about was suddenly
but on the
movie
surface he looks
posters
hard
and
ready.
News broadcasts worldwide. What locals had known for decades, that 8 Mile was more than pavement, it was a boundary, was now understood on a global stage.
Okay.
After
Eminem
2002,
then made it
8 Mile was no
worldwide.
longer just a local shorthand. It was global. The movie had turned what Detroiters lived with for generations into a story that the entire world now recognized. Tourists began driving north of downtown, not to see a skyscraper or a factory, but to take pictures beside the road itself. Yet the reality remained more complex than Hollywood suggested. Remember,
Okay.
Eminem's childhood was scattered across Detroit and its suburbs. From a house on Dresden Street, now demolished, to apartments in Warren and just over the border. He grew up near 8 Mile, often just south of it, but not always on the road itself. only to later move into Rochester Hills, a far wealthier suburb, which underscored the distance between the hardship that he rapped about and the life he eventually achieved. For the community along 8
because
Mile,
Rochester Hills is
fame
subs
didn't
for
erase
sure.
the past, but it did change the way that outsiders looked at the neighborhood. The most striking transformation was the wall itself. What had been poured in 1941 to separate families was, by the 2000s, covered in murals. Artists painted images of children,
That's fire.
symbols of peace, and tributes to Detroit's history. Meaning, where neighbors once looked at bare concrete, they now saw color and memory. In 2006, community groups began formally reclaiming the wall as public art. By 2021, it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, recognized not as an embarrassment to hide, but as a
Burwood
reminder
Wall.
of what had happened and how far the city had come. Local voices helped.
I gotta go
people
see
learn.
that.
Activist Teresa Moon, who grew up in the neighborhood, described it as, quote, sacred ground, a place where, despite exclusion, families built community and children still played. Her work and that of others reframed the wall not as a scar, but as a landmark of resilience. And even beyond the artwork, 8 Mile today
That's
is
fire, bro.
not the bleak corridor that its reputation suggests. Yes, parts of the strip are still lined with pawn shops, liquor stores, and empty lots, but there are also thriving businesses, community centers, and unexpected signs of ordinary life. One recent visitor noted gyms, bakeries, and even an MMA training school operating along 8 Mile. Another described stretches of the road where families were barbecuing, kids were playing baseball.
8 Mile ain't even that bad no more, y'all.
Stable than the headlines would suggest.
I'm telling y'all,
Well,
8 Mile is not that
reputation
bad.
versus reality defines 8 Mile now. It's still invoked as the border of Detroit, still remembered
is.
as a line of
Bro, look.
mix of
All right, I think this video done. WS video, bro. 8 Mile. 8 Mile is not considered like bad Detroit no more. All right, it's really not that bad, bro. The city is getting a lot better. So, yeah, we gotta thank Eminem for what he did for the city, though. No cap, nigga. Like, he did a lot for the city. It's just nobody listened to him. I used to listen to him until I started getting flamed for listening to him. I'm thinking I'm supporting the biggest rapper in our city. Hell no, bro. They don't fuck with Eminem, bro. So I stopped fucking with him. That was a while back. But I can still bang some Eminem. Like, I can still bang some. We might play some Eminem one day. Who knows? Alright, comment some shit y'all want me to react to in the comment section. Also sub to the channel. And then come over to the Twitch, Nate Ramon, man. We be live. I'm about to drag you over to the reactions right now, bro. Come on.